Well, g'day and welcome to the Exponential Australia Church Leaders Podcast. We are delighted that you have joined us on the podcast today as we continue to jump into all manner of conversations, particularly related to making disciples, raising leaders, planting churches in all sorts of different ways, models, fashions, and really wanting to encourage you as church leaders, potential church planters, wherever you are today, listening and just considering the ways that the Lord might want to use you. And today we are joined by a good mate of mine, Luke Montgomery, more affectionately known as Monty. Now, if you are watching this clip rather than listening to this clip, you're probably wondering who on earth is on the other side of this video clip, because Monty, mate, you look a little bit like you're out of Sons of Anarchy. I love your beard. I love your appearance. But that's just a really affectionate way to introduce Monty. Monty, it is so great to have you on the podcast with us today, mate.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure to be here. I went for more of a Vikings vibe than Anarchy, but
Too good. Well, mate, of course, to many folk who listen to our podcast, your name, who you are, might be new to them. And so, as we love to do with our guests, give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch of who you are, where you find yourself. Of course, we're going to get to some of the things that you do with your time throughout the week, but I'd love just for our guests to begin to get to know you first.
Yeah, brother. So I am a Sydney boy. I was born in Hornsby, and we moved up from Sydney up to Ipswich, Queensland, about 5 years ago now. So made the big move up. I'm married to Amy. We've been married for, I'm going to say 18 years now. So we got married at 20. We have 7 kids. So we had 6 boys in a row, and finally got our little girl. So she's just
now,
the
can
best.
I just pause and say like that your little girl's future husband one day stands no chance, mate. That is going to be quite some formidable family to come into.
Brother, I have a good mate, and we both do a lot of jiu-jitsu. He has 3 girls, and he's got a rule for his future husbands to be, for his daughters, that they have to beat him on the mats, and that's going to be the case for our daughter, mate, for her future husband. Has to beat my boys and has to beat me on the mats, and then he'll get the blessing.
That's all well and good when there's just like one of you, but like he's going to have to face all 6 brothers as well. So what a future!
Yeah, I'll let him knock them off one at a time, but he has to beat them. Yeah.
Too good.
So yeah, man. And then we run a thing called Neighbourhood, which is a lot of fun up here. I work as a social worker as well. So I work in homelessness. And so that's been awesome, but really full on as well over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And yeah, man, that's kind of us at the moment.
Love that. Well, we're gonna dive into some of, I guess, your heart behind Neighbourhood. Now, before we even get there, tell us a little bit about your journey up to Ipswich. For those who don't know where Ipswich is, tell us a bit about Ipswich, because I think that'll also speak to some of your heart and the heart of Neighbourhood as well.
Yeah, man. So when we were working out where we were being called out of Sydney, we felt very led that we were being called out of Sydney. And one of the big things that God stirred on us over the course of 2 years was that we would move into an area that was like low socioeconomic. We'd move into an area that was multicultural, and we'd move into an area where there was a lot of youth crime and there were youth detention centres, and that's been a huge passion of mine. And so out of nowhere, we got a phone call about a job up here in Ipswich. And we were always moving to the sunny coast, brother. That was always the plan. We wanted the beach. And instead, we've got the Bremer River in Ipswich, which is not exactly the beach and not the best. But, mate, we moved to Ipswich and we just absolutely love it up here. So many families, so much personality, so much character in Ipswich. It's a growing city. So one of the fastest growing cities in Australia. And yeah, just an awesome place to live. heaps of personality, but it's never boring up here, mate.
Love it. Love it. Well, tell us, of course, you've already alluded to Neighbourhood. That I guess is the main initiative that you're in amongst all the different things that you're passionate about, Monty. But for those who haven't heard of Neighbourhood, tell us, where did it come from? What's the idea behind it? Of course, you're doing all of these things from a kingdom lens, from a kingdom perspective. And of course, people may be wondering, how does that intersect with church leadership, church planting? We're going to get to some of those things today. But what you guys are doing is just super innovative when it comes to ways of getting in people's lives, sharing the good news, being the good news, opportunities to connect with all sorts of people that would maybe potentially never set foot in a traditional church. So tell us a bit about Neighbourhood and how that came about.
Yeah, mate, I'll probably have to take a step back. When I was in Sydney, I worked at a place called the Centre, also known as Dual Baptist Church, in the hills of Sydney, and I was there for about 10 years. And Dual was a really unique place, mate, because it was a combination of third spaces. So they have a huge sports centre, did a lot of futsal, a lot of netball, men's sheds, drop-in centres, youth spaces. And then we had the church as well. And so there was a lot of innovation that had gone in before I got there. And then that was a really interesting space for me to learn, to grow, to be able to use some of my giftings in that space as well. There was a lot of stuff I learned about things you might not do. And then there was a lot I learned about things that work really, really well. And so it's such a special place to be for 10 years. And so a lot of my, what the Spirit put on my heart during that time was around deep community, deep friendship. How do third spaces work in a way that bring people from all walks of life into a kingdom community, and looking at it going, as Christians, like, we carry joy, we carry generosity, we carry grace, like this crazy idea of grace, and they should be really attractive to the communities that we live in. And so being in third spaces, I got to see what that looked like, but then I also got to refine a lot of my thinking around what I think they should look like. So Neighbourhood, a lot of the vision for Neighbourhood came from down working there. I sat in a lot of Mike Frost's classes when I went to Morling, and he pushed my thinking a lot around what does it look like for the church to be operating in a way that works with the marginalised, works with everyday people, and creates that intersection of society. And obviously Tim Keller had a huge impact. So his work on Centre Church and where churches are placed, the importance of the city, the importance of presence and proximity. And so Neighbourhood was birthed out of this desire and this dream that God had put on my heart for a long time to just equip people in their giftings and to create wells, to create meeting places in the middle of the city, in the middle of community that would be really relevant to people from all walks of life. So for Neighbourhood, we have a cafe, we have a barber, we do a lot of martial arts, so we do jiu-jitsu and boxing. It's really important for us that we do things with excellence. So we want to be in places where we are growing, and we know if we're growing, if our families are growing, then that's going to be really good for community. So we're proud of the different spaces that we run. We try and do things really well. But they're meeting places. They're places for Christians, non-Christians to come, be welcome. And the good thing about third spaces is that they're generally cross-generational. They're places you want to be every day. I use language really, really deliberately there, like you want to be there. So it's not somewhere you have to be. It's not somewhere you're like, because you're serving, you're going to be there. It's that you actually want to be there. You're getting stuff from it. And so there's this joy, there's this happiness that comes because you're a part of something that as a human, you want to be involved in. And there's something that's just contagious about that. Like when you want to be somewhere, then you want to invite other people there, that you're getting something from it. You're going to pass that on. And so we run Neighbourhood with third spaces. So we have one in the middle of town in Ipswich. We run one in Fernvale as well. And so that's in terms of our third spaces, that's what Neighbourhood is. We also have some employment stuff. So we do a lot of work with young people and a lot of work with at-risk young people. And one of the things we've realised is that second space, so your workplace, is really important in terms of discipleship, in terms of long-term success for these young people, where we can partner a young person with someone with maturity, with wisdom. And so, we're stepping into landscaping stuff. We're already doing some cleaning stuff. So that's a really big part for us. And probably the biggest thing that we do at the moment is the youth detention work. So we have teams of youth workers that go into the youth detention centres up here in Brisbane. So there's 3 of them at the moment in Wacol. And our teams go in, they run programs. So they run a program called Honest to Who, which is a Bible study, and it's all opt-in. So the kids opt in to do that. There's nothing that we do with Neighbourhood that forces the kids to do anything, which is really important. And we would have over 60 young people a week who opt into those Bible studies, and the team in there do an exceptional job at just meeting the kids where they're at, and just sitting down with them, going through what the gospel is and giving them opportunities to respond. And then we do things like LOAs, that's like leave of absence. So that's where the kids will come to our site, they'll learn baristering, barbering, they'll do some fitness stuff. We'll sit down and have a meal with them. And for a lot of them, it's the first time they've sat at a table and had a meal with family. And so that's a really unique and privileged experience we get. And then we do a lot of work with them, the young people, when they get out of youth detention. So that's a huge part of what we do with Neighbourhood. It's a really sad space that we work in. There's huge amounts of money that go into young people in youth detention, upwards of $1 million+ a year for each young person. Over 90% of those young people are back in youth detention within 12 months. And it's all to do with their lack of dads, lack of family, lack of community, and then lack of opportunities and purpose. So we try and bridge those worlds as much as we can.
Yeah. Mate, like there's just such a smorgasbord in what you've just shared, and I think anyone who's potentially hearing some of your story for the first time is probably sitting there overwhelmed going, wow, like what a work of the kingdom. And I just would want to pause for a second, even just to acknowledge that, just kind of what God's doing through you and a group of amazing people who are making that happen. It's such a beautiful story that's happening in our nation. And of course, as you've shared, there's so many different threads that I want to pull on, just having, wanting people to hear more about it. And we're going to try and do that now. And I want to come back to some of the youth detention stuff, because I think that's really significant and it's a really big part of your heart. But I guess where I'd love to go first is particularly, and you kind of almost use this line, and I know it's a line that you guys use a lot at Neighbourhood, of the language of passing on good things, and that being like a strong value theme that is integral to what you guys are doing. And I wonder, just for like, an average week, if a young person were to walk in, or someone to walk into Neighbourhood looking for community, looking for relationship, what would that look like, on any given Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday of the week?
Yeah, so I'll answer that with our philosophy before I answer it in terms of the practice, because the philosophy for us is kind of everything. So we use this term, pass on good things. It's on all our shirts. It's the language that we use. And there's 2 main things that kind of come from that. That comes from 1 Corinthians 15, and it's where Paul's talking, for what I have received, I then pass on of first importance. And so there he's talking about the gospel. And so the first part of what we know in anyone's journey is that they have to receive good things. And for many of the young people that we're working with, they have not received good things. So they've received a lot of trauma, a lot of generational trauma that's been passed on from generation to generation to generation. And so the first kind of thing that we look at is that we want to create environments where young people can be safe, where they can heal, where they're welcomed, they can be there for the long haul. So one of the things that happens with a lot of young people is that they're put in programs. So it could be a 6-week program or an 8-week program, and they complete the program and then that's it. For us, it's that we would create environments where they can be there for 5 years, 10 years, and they're in environments where they're safe and they're given time to actually heal. We do a lot of mentoring with them to help them to do that. Because the big thing for us is if you're going to pass on good things, it has to come from a place of healing. It has to come from a place of grace. It needs to come from a place where you have that well, that's able to then pass on good things. And so the second part of it is that everyone is made in the image of God, and everyone has good things to pass on. And so one of the convictions that we have at Neighbourhood is this idea of priesthood of all believers. So a lot of people talk about priesthood of all believers. A lot of churches talk about priesthood of all believers. I've been a Baptist pastor a long time. They're very passionate about this idea of priesthood of all believers. But we take that really seriously. So the beauty of Third Spaces is that we believe that everyone who's coming into our space is made in the image of God and has good things to pass on. And so we very much focus on not using people. We very much focus on creating environments where everyone is welcome, everyone is bringing something. And so for your average young person that comes along on a Tuesday afternoon, the biggest thing that we want for them is we want them to be surrounded by family. Most of them have never been surrounded by family. So we want them to be surrounded by the young and the old. We want them to be surrounded by people who, mums and dads, business owners, tradies, just everyday community legends who are carrying good things. And we want them to be caught up in that, because when they're caught up in that, they're discipled in that. And then all of a sudden we watch them just start passing that on to the people around them. And many of these young people are caught in communities and friendships that those young people desperately need good things. And so all of a sudden these young people are discipled in good things. They then pass that on and they kind of raise the bar for what life looks like. So that's for an average young person, they're going to get involved in what we're doing. It can look radically different depending on what their passions are. We've got a young fellow at the moment who is a barber. He has come through our barbering program, got his certifications, has been discipled really well. He's a young fellow that came through the youth justice system, been in multiple detention centres, and now is one of our key barbers and is just passing on good things. This young fellow prays for different clients. He's an absolute legend. So you've got guys like that who have, come through a lot of what we're doing over the course of a few years. Then you've got other young people who'll step in for the first time. Some of them are coming from amazing families. Some of them are coming from the resi care system. And so you kind of get a smorgasbord. The beautiful thing for us is we have a really good community, a lot of really strong males and by strong, I mean deep character, lots of joy, great dads, know who they are. And a lot of them are really physically strong because they're really good boxers and jiu-jitsu fellas. So what it means is young people come in and they're not, and I say this in the best possible way, they're not at the top of the pecking order. They don't come in and set the cultures. They have to receive the cultures. And those cultures are really good. And then we equip them to then set really good cultures. Yeah,
mate, I love that. And I mean, we could go off in like a rabbit hole in terms of, even like male initiation and what it means to actually invite young men into spaces like that, which I guess lends to, where I'd love to take the conversation now around your heart for juvenile justice. Like we've spoken a lot offline just around your heart for those spaces. And of course, as a biological father, but as a spiritual father to many, just like the heart that the Lord has given you for those kinds of spaces. I wonder, this is a little bit off script, Monty, but if you can just kind of speak to just, the immense opportunities that you're seeing in some of those spaces and just how the Lord's kind of geared you in that way.
Yeah, mate. When I was 20, I started going into Cobham Youth Detention Centre, Cobham Remand Centre down in Mount Druitt. And I went in, I had no idea what I was getting into. But after about a year, I was sitting down with a young fella I'd done a bunch of, mentoring with. And there was a moment for me that was really pivotal because it kind of was the seed that God put in my heart that then has grown dramatically. And we were sitting and we were watching this young fella, and he would have been about 12. He was tiny. And he was walking out of the youth detention centre, and he was being escorted out by two youth workers, and he was in tears, absolutely gutted. And I turned to this young fella I've been working with, and I just asked him, I'm like, why is he so upset? Like, he's getting out. And one of the things for me is I'm walking into this detention centre, and every day I'm walking out and I'm tired. Like, it's a spiritually oppressive place. I'm walking out exhausted from it. Multiple fences. Your day is completely regimented. And I'm walking out, going, this is not how humans are meant to live. And this young fella is walking out and he's absolutely devastated. And this young fella said a line to me that just stuck with me forever. And he said to me, his life on the inside is so much better than his life on the outside. And it just hit me in this moment as a 21, 22-year-old. I just sat there and went, how sad is it that young fella's life is so much better here when I'm walking out surrounded by amazing community, an amazing church, amazing wife, amazing friends. And I just went, this isn't right. And so one of my deep passions is, like, I have 7 kids. I want to extend the definition of family. I love my kids. I have a huge vision for them. I'm all in on being a great dad. And I just watch all these young people, because of the environments that they were born into, because of the families that they were born into, where their parents genuinely, for the most part, didn't want them. Their life is radically different than the kids that I have. And so my heart for these young people is that they would get a foundation and an opportunity, that they'd be surrounded by people who love them. And if they want to grow, like if they want to move forward, if they want to heal, and if they want to, if they want to build something with their lives, then they actually have an opportunity to do that. One of my passions in this space is that what we've done, especially as a church, with a lot of this stuff, is we've outsourced a lot of our social welfare to the government. And there's a really beautiful line, I'm pretty sure it was John Tyson who said it, but it hit me hard. And it was that the government makes a terrible parent. And that line really stuck with me, because in all the spaces that I work in homelessness, in youth justice, like, the government doesn't have the profound answers for these young people. There's so much money that goes into youth detention. There's so much money that goes into youth justice. There's so much money that goes into homelessness, and it doesn't work. For the most part, it doesn't work. What works is the gospel. What works is deep community. What works is family. What works is discipleship and mentoring. That's what works. And so we're just really passionate about creating spaces where that can happen, but more so empowering the right leaders in our community and in our city to be the ones who are doing that work. And so that's my passion. It's equipping people to be in those spaces, in the youth detention centres. There's amazing opportunities in the detention centres with these young people. So many of them want to change. We see on the news so many bad stories. And one of the things that we do with Neighbourhood is we never downplay, like, the crimes that these young people have committed. Some of them are really full on, but we do want to upplay, like, the level of grace and relationship and opportunity that these young people get. And so, there's some amazing opportunities. There's some amazing stories of just radical transformation where, we've got some young guys who have spent 4 or 5 years in youth detention, who are now leading families, working full time, and just getting after it. And so those sort of transformations are just absolutely beautiful. So, yeah.
Love that, Monty. And mate, what I'm really hearing somewhat in what you're sharing is almost like just a bit of a prophetic wake-up call, maybe to churches or church leaders, just really that one of the things that the world is really crying out for is spiritual family, are people to belong to. Of course, we've all heard it with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, the opportunities are on our doorstep. Like, it's, and sometimes, unless we're careful, we can get so drawn into working for the church rather than on the church, and actually recognizing what are we seeking to invite people into in terms of being on mission for God. And I guess that's where I'd love to take, the next part of our conversation is, of course, what you guys have been pioneering in Ipswich is so unique. And of course, it matches the context, it matches the culture. You guys have experienced profound openness because on one level, it just makes total sense. On one level, it's just kind of like, this is what lies before us. This is what we can bring to the community. And yet I'd love to hear maybe as you seek to just kind of open up the conversation to maybe church leaders or church planters who are listening to this going, well, what does that look like in my neighbourhood? What does that look like for where I am? Because, of course, it's going to look different depending upon where people are ministering and living. And so what would be like, I guess, a first place that you would encourage potential listeners to consider or to step into when it comes to just prayerfully being open to how God might want to lead them in impacting the community around them?
Love it. I'll go down the rabbit hole with you a little bit. One of my personal passions, I absolutely love the local church. One of the things I've seen lots of people in my journey of faith. I've been a Christian 20 years. I've seen lots of people who get frustrated with the local church, and then just end up critiquing it, end up, pulling it apart. And then there's this lack of love that happens. For me, for the crew we've got in Neighbourhood, we absolutely love the local church. We believe in the local church. We're all in. One of the things I think the local church has done, and I was part of this for a long time, is one of the greatest weapons we have in the local church is that of family. So the fact that the young and old would come together under the name of Jesus and create environments where there's this passing on of wisdom, passing on of good things. There's this radical generosity. There's this beautiful idea of family in the proper definition of what family is. One of the convictions I have, and one of the things I would say to church leaders, just to think through, is that I think we've got our structures wrong. Like, we've followed and chased after cheap success. And one of the ways that we've done that is that we've taken the church and we've tried to split it up into so many different areas and ways. So if you look at a lot of local churches, we have our kids ministry, we have our youth ministry, we have our young adults ministry, we have our women's ministry, our men's ministry, we might have a morning service, a night service. And we have done everything we can to split the church apart. We went yesterday as a staff retreat, we did some shooting. And imagine taking a gun and then pulling it apart and using all the different pieces and putting them on the ground and then wondering why you can't hit anything. I think we've done that with the local church. We've done everything we can to break it apart. And the enemy's had a bit of a field day in going, we're going to get our kids and our youth to be over here, and they're never going to spend any time with our 80-year-olds. They're never going to spend any time in deep, genuine family. We're going to create night services full of young adults. I don't know what young adults ministry is. I don't believe in it at all. But we're going to create these environments where young adults, at a key time in their age, in their walk with Jesus, are not going to be around any 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds. That's outrageous to me. And so one of the things that I think we've done with the local church is that we have taken one of the greatest weapons in the kingdom, one of the biggest things that our society is crying out for, and then we've just separated it all. And so one of my encouragements to pastors and church leaders would be to look at this idea of family, think about how we've structured things, because the thing that I notice is that so many people in this time are seeking. They are asking profound questions. They're coming to churches. It's not that they're not even walking through the door. I know so many people who have walked into church who I wouldn't have said ever would have 5 years ago. For young people coming out of, youth detention, or really at-risk young people, the biggest cry in their heart, the biggest thing that they need, they might not be able to tell you this immediately, but the biggest thing they need is they need family. They need to be surrounded by mums and dads. Yeah. So my biggest passion is that our churches would actually just be true to their call to be the local church. They'd be really proud of it. And then they would spend time really thinking about innovation, thinking about the people in their community and in their congregation who are carrying a heart for the city. But at the moment, the way in which they're serving, the way in which the church is inviting them to be the priesthood of all believers, is really narrow. And again, I'm not saying this to critique, but it's the cry that we often have is that you can join the worship team, you can join the welcome team, you can join a prayer team, or you can give some money. And it's what does it look like for our innovators in the church, for our pioneers, for the guys in the church for our men in the church who have a real heart for the city, who have a real heart for mentoring and discipleship? What does it look like for them to be involved in the shalom, the bringing of the kingdom into the city? because in our churches, we have all these people who are passionate about third spaces. They're passionate about running. Like, imagine just starting a run club in your church. It doesn't have to be this really profound thing. It can be really simple. There's already people in your churches who are running. So what does it look like to just do that on a regular basis and invite community into that and then see what happens? So a lot of it is like, have a real big vision for the people in your local church. Listen to what like they're carrying. Don't, as leaders, feel like you've got to come up with everything. You shouldn't, you couldn't. Who are the people in your church who have these visions, and how you equip them and empower them? Because I think as churches and as leaders in the church, we're meant to be these bridge builders. We're meant to usher in shalom, as Ash Barker talks about. We're meant to partner with people in the city who are ushering in shalom. And a lot of the answers are in our churches already. So a lot of it is just backing those people.
So good, mate. What a great start. And I'd just encourage anyone who's listening today, the opportunities are there. It's just often a matter of, joining with the Spirit of God, being, considering, where the kingdom is already at work and joining in with that. Monty, the question that I'd love to ask you just to finish our time, and this one's probably more of a bit of I guess you could say it's a personal question. You kind of talked about both how sad the work you do is in terms of, kind of seeing some of the trauma and some of the heartbreak of the world. Also, in being a pioneer, the very nature of being a pioneer is discouraging. Like, half the time you feel like you're facing an uphill battle just in terms of trying to convince people of an idea or instigate something that which doesn't exist. And I'd just love to ask you just like a personal heart question of like, how do you keep your heart soft as you kind of experience all that you experience, as you kind of come face to face with the best and the worst of humanity? What does it look like for you to keep your heart soft before the Lord in the ways that he wants to use you to bring about that shalom?
Great question, brother. Ezekiel 36 talks about that idea of hard heart and soft heart. And the beautiful language that I'm just constantly reminded of in Ezekiel 36 is God says to his people, I will give you a clean heart. I will take away your heart of stone. I will move you to follow my decrees. And the thing for me, I have moments where I struggle, where the heart gets hard. I can feel it getting hard. I think I have some really good theology around the fact that everyone is made in the image of God. Everyone has been, knit together in their mother's womb. Like, I have this theology that looks at all people and has a really big vision for people. But there are moments, brother, where it's tough and the heart gets hard. You start to question things. And I think for me, it's like that quiet place, that secret place, and just being renewed by who he is. One of the big things for me and for the group of families and team that we have is that it is about our walk with Jesus. It's about our joy. It's not about performance. I'm really fortunate to be surrounded by amazing people. And a lot of that comes out of this idea from C.S. Lewis, where he talks about the most profound ministries come out of deep friendship.
Yes.
And for me, I'm surrounded by really good friends in this walk. And so we're able to encourage each other. We're able to do that iron sharpens iron. We're able to pray for each other, call each other out on stuff. And so that's hugely important. And then for me, man, honestly, the thing that edifies me the most is just family. So the way in which my kids have received the gospel, but then the way in which now they're at a point where they're giving me the gospel. And there's moments where I'll be driving home from work and I've got them in the car and they're reminding me of who Jesus is and how good his grace is. And so probably the biggest thing I'd say comes from a passage in Amos. And in Amos 9, we did a series on this about 15 years ago down in Dural. But in Amos 9, there's 9 chapters where the people of Israel are being called out for not loving the poor and not seeking him. And at the end of Amos 9, there's this little passage of hope. And Amos says that they will rebuild the ruined cities and they will live in them.
Yes.
They will plant vineyards and they will drink their wine. They will make gardens and they will eat their fruit. And one of the things that's been huge for me is, yes, I've pioneered a lot of stuff. I've stepped out in a lot of different ways. but the blessing that I've received in that, because, you know, I've been a part of rebuilding some ruined cities. Well, it says in Amos 9 that I get to live in them, right? And it's not selfish. It's that as we rebuild the city, there's beauty that comes from that. There's life that comes from that. And our families are the ones that are going to receive that. The marginalized are going to receive that. Like, everyone gets caught up in his grace and his kingdom. And so one of the things for me is that, like, as I plant vineyards, I get to drink the wine. As we make gardens, I get to eat the fruit. And so there's this, I receive so much, so many good things because I've been a part of, in small ways, planting small things. So a lot of the stuff that renews me, man, is the community and the people around me, from Neighbourhood, from our local churches, from the city of Ipswich, who just constantly remind me how good God is, how much we need him, how much he is the only answer. And so, I'm very fortunate in that still small place with Jesus. Like, I get renewed there, but I get renewed by the city. I get renewed by the people around me. So that's kind of everything.
It's brilliant, Monty, mate. We want to thank you for the incredible kingdom work that you're doing. You're a prophet. Thank you for your insights today. And mate, our prayer for the Aussie church, as you've obviously led us in today, is that there would be more opportunities to take the gospel into hurting in dark places. And whether that's Ipswich or other parts of Australia that desperately need that kind of presence making, mate, we really appreciate the time that you've sown into the podcast today, mate.
No, brother, thank you for having us. And one of the things for us, we feel a real call to encourage local churches who are passionate about third spaces and are passionate about their cities. And so even with me, if anyone wants to chat that through, one of the things for us with Neighbourhood is we can see a big future in partnering with local churches in this space. And so anyone who wants to have those conversations, we're really open to have them.
It's brilliant. How can people best contact you, Monty?
Yeah, so we have a website, so it's nbht.org.au, and you can jump on there and get in contact with us on the email.
Love it. Bless you, mate. Loved having you.
Thanks so much for having us, bro.